live show is brought to you by Garden Express and Yates.
Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
From indoor plant care to garden weed control products, Yates is the secret to a thriving garden. Later in the show, the team at Yates will share their top gardening tips and tricks for you to try this weekend. And for more advice to make your garden bloom, head to yates.com.au.
Hello again and welcome to another episode of Garden Gurus Live, the perfect place to get all your garden questions answered directly by a garden guru. No Trevor today, he's off jet setting around the world somewhere, no idea where, so you're stuck with me, Darren Senior. Very shortly we'll have a chat with Angie from Yates to talk about all the things you need to do to get your garden ready for spring. And then we'll speak to Rowan Peterson from Garden Express to see exactly what he has in store for us today. And also we'll be catching up with Joanne from the Guildford Town Garden Centre to talk about a wonderful initiative they're involved in that will hopefully get more children out in the garden and engaged with planting trees. Now, as per usual, we have a $50 Garden Express gift voucher to give away to our favourite question of the day. So make sure you get your questions in by commenting below. Our favourite question gets the $50. Thanks to all those who have already sent their questions in. And remember, you can get your questions in on the Facebook page or via email. And don't forget Messenger, that's perfect as well. Now, before we get into it today, could you do us all a big favour by tagging all your friends in the comments below and sharing the live right now so we can build up our audience. So to start with, first up, we're talking to Angie from Yates. Good morning, Angie. How are you?
Good morning. I'm looking forward to a weekend of gardening, so life is good.
Well, it's perfect gardening weather over here in Perth. Spring has sprung absolutely magnificently here. So everyone's looking at the garden and thinking, well, I haven't been out there all winter. I've got to get out in the garden. What are some of the really ideal things they should be doing to get the best out of this beautiful spring weather?
So the first thing is to get on top of your weeds, because weeds haven't necessarily gone to sleep during winter. They're just getting started as the weather warms up. So it's really important to get on top of those weeds because they're going to be springing out of the ground in this warm weather and they're going to be wanting to flower and set seed. And if you allow them to flower and set seed, it's creating future generations of weeds. So by controlling them now before they've had a chance to do that, it's going to save you years and months of weed heartache in the future. So get onto them. Yates Zero Triple Strike is a fantastic way to control broadleaf and grass weeds. So get on top of them. And also, weeds steal water and nutrients from your surrounding plants and they ruin the look of the garden. So it's really important to get on top of weeds, but just make it easy. It doesn't need to be back-breaking. Zero Triple Strike will control the weeds, roots and all, because often when you try to pull those big weeds out of the ground, the root system is still there and it will re-sprout. So get on top of your weeds. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing in my garden this weekend. Also, have a look at your citrus. So citrus are really busy all year round, but particularly in spring. They're very busy. They're flowering, they're growing new leaves, and those tender new leaves are really vulnerable to a significant pest called citrus leaf miner. So citrus leaf miner is a tiny little insect. You don't see them. They're not big and showy, but what they do is they lay their eggs on those tender, soft new leaves that citrus are growing right now. And the eggs hatch out and larvae burrow into the leaves. And that's when leaves start to get all curled and twisted and you can see silvery tunnels in the leaves. And it's not often till we see those, and we know people go into store and ask their local nursery, how do I fix my curly leaves on my citrus? And unfortunately, then it's too late. So we really need to be proactive and prevent the citrus leaf miner damage now before it happens. So use an oil-based spray, something like OCP Eco Oil or Pest Oil. Spray that over the foliage and that deters the adult citrus leaf miner moth from laying her eggs in the first place. So no eggs, no larvae, and your beautiful new citrus leaves will stay lovely and unaffected. So that's another one. You don't need to spray forever. It's just over those first months when the citrus leaves are soft and vulnerable. Just really make sure during spring that is one of the key things that you're doing for your citrus trees. And the third big tip is it's time to plant and sow lots and lots of things. So this weekend in my garden, I'm going to be sowing zucchini. You can never have too many zucchinis. I'm going to be putting some butternut pumpkins in, watermelons, cucumbers, more tomatoes. But before I sow or plant anything, I'm going to be mixing in some fragrant handfuls of Yates Dynamic Lifter. It's really crucial to make sure that before we plant anything, we're enriching the soil with organic matter, and particularly if you've got a sandy soil, which is really usually poor in organic matter, because organic matter does some awesome things. Organic matter holds more moisture and nutrients in the soil, helps to improve the soil structure no matter what soil you've got, whether it's the sandiest of sandy soils or clay. Organic matter does some wonderful things. Also, the earthworms and the microorganisms love it as well. So mix some Dynamic Lifter into the soil before you're planting anything in your veggie patch, and the worms and the veggies will love you for it.
Sounds like you're going to be very busy in your garden, Angie.
Look, it's my happy place. I'm fortunate enough to have 5 acres to play with, and I don't know where to stop. So I just keep on gardening. So it's just lovely because it's such an important time of year. But it's beautiful. The blossom trees and the bees and the butterflies are out, and it's just a wonderful time to be a gardener. And all the effort that we put in now is really going to pay dividends in the coming months. And when you'll be harvesting your all those tons of zucchinis and tomatoes and pumpkins and all the lovely things that we'll be sowing and growing right now. So I really hope everyone has a wonderful and productive weekend in their gardens.
Well, there's some wonderful tips there, Angie. Now, for all our green thumbs out there, we've got a little short clip of you to show, just to recap those great pearls of wisdom, and hopefully people take that advice on board, because as you say, the work you put in now, you reap the rewards a little later in the year. So thank you very much for that, Angie. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren.
I'm Angie from Yates, and we've been helping Australians achieve gardening success for more than 130 years. Here are 3 things that you can do in your garden this weekend. Before planting veggies, improve and enrich the soil first with some handfuls of Yates Dynamic Lifter. As the weather warms up, garden weeds will grow rapidly. Control weeds before they have a chance to flower and set seed. New leaves on citrus trees need to be protected from dreaded leaf miner with an oil-based spray. Got a question about your garden? Yates horticulturists are available for free live chat advice.
There we go.
Thanks for that, Angie. Is that your garden that was shot in?
No, it wasn't. But one day my garden will look like that. I've got garden aims like we all do. But hope everyone has a wonderful weekend in their gardens.
No, and thank you again. That's some great advice, and I'm sure all our listeners and watchers will take it all on board. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your week, and have a great weekend in the garden.
Thanks, Darren. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks again to Angie for that. Those pearls of wisdom. One little thing I'll also add to it: the pest oil. We're finding in Perth that if you're spraying for pest oil with pest oil at this time of the year on your citrus to try and prevent the citrus leaf miner, it seems to be having an effect. That's where it's helping avoid the worst of the citrus gall wasp, which has been a big problem in Perth. So it's something else to add into it. So now we're going to go and talk to Joanne from the Guildford Town Garden Centre about the 1 tree per child initiative. It's a great idea, I think, and something that I hope really takes off. Joanne, are you there?
I am.
Hey, Joe, how are you going?
I'm good. How are you this morning, Darren?
Very good. Great to talk to you. Now, the 1 tree per child initiative. So this is a garden centre based initiative at the moment. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So I'm part of the Garden Centres of Australia, and we took on the 1 tree per child, along with Jimmy and Jane Barnes being involved in it also. So what we're doing is we're trying to encourage people to buy and plant a tree, whether you're with your grandparent, if you're a grandparent, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, anybody, just grab a child and plant a tree. So how one tree per child came about was John Dee and Olivia Newton-John started it. And it was launched in England, and I think it was in the Bristol area. And what they did was they got every single child in school to plant one tree before they finished school. And they had an estimate, they wanted 37,000 trees planted. Well, they smashed it. They planted 39,000 trees. So I know that Perth has the lowest tree canopy in Australia. So what we're wanting to do is make sure that we can plant more and more trees. So as a garden centre, we want to encourage people to do this. So we're out and about and trying to push the word and get it all happening. You know, there's 10 countries doing this. And in fact, it's mentioned in their main advertising as Shepparton. I think it's called the Greater Shepparton area. They did an amazing job at it too. So I'm hoping some of your listeners might be teachers, or, you know, they might be from the Shire, city councils, and they'll take this up because there's a lot of funding that they can take up and get this happening for them too.
It's a fantastic idea, Joe. I think, you know, getting children out in the garden, getting them engaged with gardening, getting them to understand just how important trees are in our environment. So kids like getting out and playing, but they love playing in shade. They don't want to be out in the sun all day. So what can our listeners and our viewers do? How can they get involved? Where can they find some more information to really get their teeth into it?
Well, there's a great website. You can just Google One Tree Per Child, and there's a lot of information. But you can go to any garden centre, anywhere in Australia, and there's lots of different garden centres that are involved with it. But I just want to encourage people to go out, get a tree, plant it. Whether you're coming to our garden centre or any of the others, just get out there and do it. We happen to have a sale on at the moment, which may help you on trees. But other than that, just go everywhere. Yep, there's the link. Click that and you'll get so much information.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic idea. And as you sort of alluded to, it's a great thing that whether you're a parent, an uncle, an auntie, a grandparent, you can grab a little Johnny or away from his computer 5 minutes. You take the kids out and get them out in the garden, get their hands dirty, talk to them about why we plant trees, why trees are so valuable. Yeah, and that tree that you plant with them today, they might be sitting under the shade of that with their children in 30 years' time. So yeah, it's a fantastic concept. I hope everyone gets involved and gets on board. Go into your local garden centre. Talk to one of the horticulturists there. I'm sure you'll probably end up buying a couple of plants while you're there, to be honest, Joe. It's so much beautiful stuff in the garden centres at the moment. But get involved in the program and let's get some more trees in the ground. Fantastic. Yes. Well done to you and all the other garden centres.
Thank you
very much. I really valued your time today. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Darren. Bye-bye.
So what a great start to our show. But I can see there's a lot of questions building up. So I thought we better get a bit of a wriggle on and get into some of the questions. So to start with, we have Lee Burgess. Now, Lee's out in the wheat belt, having a bit of problem with their soil. It's been rock hard, having trouble getting anything to grow, even just to dig a hole in the ground, which can be a bit of a problem in the wheat belt. That clay and gravel out there can be really hard. So Lee's tried a few different things, added some soil conditioner, added some sea salt, added a few other bits and pieces trying to get that soil loose, but it's still staying rock hard. So Lee, the problem could be a combination of things. That area of soil could be really compacted. So it might be an area on your block that's seen a lot of traffic over it, that tractors, trucks, whatever, has driven over it over a period of time and really compacted that gravel down rock hard. So that might need some physical breaking up of the gravel. So you might need to get something like a plow or an excavator or something like that in to just get in there and really open that soil up and break it up. And then you need to try and get some organic material into that clayey, gravelly soil. So organic material is the great saviour of those heavy clay and gravelly soils. Get as much as you can, whether it's compost, whether it's well-aged animal manure, anything like that, your garden compost, whatever you make yourself, get that into soil. It will break down. It will encourage earthworms. It will encourage soil microbial life, and all those will work together to open your soil up and make it eventually start to be more friable and more useful to you. The other product you can use is gypsum. So you can get gypsum either as a powder or as a liquid form. So add that onto it as well after you've done the breaking up of the soil. And lastly, just a good chunky organic mulch. So if you've got trees that are getting trimmed on your property, have the tree loppers put that through their shredder or chipper and lay that out nice and thick, 100 mil, 150 mil thick over those areas. Leave them to sit for a year or two, and they will again encourage organic life into your soil, and they will do all the work for you, opening up that clay and making it more friable and more useful for you in your garden. So it might take a little while. You might have to look at doing sections at a time rather than attacking it whole as bowlers, but I'm sure you'll get there eventually, because a lot of things grow very well out in the wheat belt. I've seen some beautiful citrus orchards and other type of productive trees growing absolutely magnificently out there. So good luck, and I hope it works really well for you. Next up, we've got Wayne Gregory. He sent a photo in of his citrus tree, and on his citrus tree, he has a couple of big unsightly lumps or galls, and was wondering what they are, and is worried about whether they have the potential to be damaging to the tree. Well, what they are, Wayne, are citrus gall wasps, and they're the galls that the citrus gall wasp creates by laying its eggs into the fresh stems of your citrus. That egg opens and grows inside the gall, forming that lumpy gall, and eventually that will burst out with little baby gall wasps will go out and infest the rest of your trees. So what I would recommend you do there now is whatever galls you have on the tree, go through and remove them, cut them out of the tree, lightly fertilize the tree. You don't want to over fertilize them. And as a preventative, there's a couple of options you can spray the tree with at this time of the year, because the gall wasps are just about to get really active. So they'll be out looking for beautiful citrus trees like yours to lay more eggs in and infest with more gall. So as a preventative, you can look at a product called kaolin clay. There's some very fine kaolin clays that have been developed especially for this application. You mix it up in a backpack, spray it on your tree, and as long as you don't have overhead watering or you don't get any rain, as long as that kaolin clay is on the leaves of the plants, that will dissuade the adult citrus gall wasps from laying more eggs in your tree. And likewise, spraying pest oil or white oil or any of those horticultural oils on your tree also seems to have a little bit of a preventative effect as well. So they're the couple of things you can do. The other thing you need to keep in mind is, although the gall wasp doesn't have a huge effect on the tree, you do need to keep it otherwise healthy. So making sure your soil's in good condition, moisture's soaking into the ground, and also that you're keeping the tree well mulched during the summer months. The tree should survive very well, but just keep on top of it. You need to monitor those trees regularly, and lemons seem to be the most susceptible to the citrus gall wasp of all the citrus we grow in our home garden. So good luck with that. I'm sure with a little bit of time, you'll get on top of that beautifully. Now, Nicole Enders would love some advice on how to propagate a Mr. Lincoln rose. She obviously has one that's in a garden. It's about 21 years old. It's looking a little tired. So she's tried splitting the stem and placing it in plastic containers with some water and some rooting hormone, and a few other things like that. The easiest way to grow a rose like Mr. Lincoln is from a hardwood cutting in winter. So you've actually just missed the best time of the year to do them, because you can do cuttings off your roses when you're doing your annual winter hard pruning your rose. So anything about pencil thickness, about 300 millimeters long, and place it into a pot with some potting mix, free draining potting mix, even something like succulent mix that drains very freely and doesn't have a lot of nutrients in, makes a good striking mix for any of these hardwood cuttings. So although you've missed the ideal time to do it, you can still do it now. So try and find some of the wood that's hardened off, that's about pencil thickness, and has like maybe 3, 4, 5 nodes on it already. Cut that about 30 centimeters long, and then place it in some hardwood striking powder or gel and into the potting mix, and you bury about a third of the cutting below the soil. Place it somewhere in the garden where it's out of full sun, where it's cool and shady, and that should set roots fairly quickly. You should expect to see roots within about 4 to 6 weeks, and that will be ready to plant out or pot up probably other side of Christmas, New Year. So maybe late January, early February, that will be ready for planting out. What I'd recommend you do is you do about 10 cuttings, and you'll probably get 7 to 8 of them would succeed, and give some away and keep some to keep in your garden. Great thing that you've got a really old rose that you want to keep growing, keep it healthy, because it keeps that connection to that plant. And Mr. Lincoln is an absolutely stunning rose, and I think it's just about the best perfume of any rose. Now, I'm sure there'll be people who disagree with me, but that's my favourite. So next up, we've got Janine Napier, wants to start looking after their neighbour orange tree, tree's looking pretty good in that photo, Janine, I'd say. Jean, sorry. It looks like snow with all the flowers on. Yes, it's flowering beautifully and heavily. It was very productive, but in spite of all the looking after with baiting, lost a lot of the fruit to fruit fly. Fruit fly is a terrible issue with citrus and stone fruit in particular. Now, she's saying it's too big to net and wondering if there's a systemic treatment that will help. Jeannie, unfortunately, there's no real systemic treatment that I would recommend that you use on your citrus trees to try and prevent the fruit fly from infecting your fruit. The problem with that is whatever gets into the system of the tree to deter these pests will also end up in your fruit, and that's not what you want. I know you're saying it's too heavy, too big to net the entire tree. So you could possibly look at each year bringing the size down a little bit to make it more manageable. The other thing you can do is bag individual fruit. So you can get groups of fruit into an exclusion bag and bag them when they're very, very small before the fruit fly has a chance to strike. And that way you'll be able to at least prevent fruit flies strike in a large percentage of the fruit on the tree. So you need to continue with your baiting, with your trapping, with your splash baits, all those sort of things to try and get the numbers down as much as possible. Good hygiene around the tree is really important. So any fruit that does fall on the ground, make sure you pick it up, bag it, and put it into your bin. So any fruit fly that's infected in there, in that fruit is being removed from your property. And you can also look at things like that can help a little bit is if you're able to fence an area underneath the tree and let some chooks in there for a little while, because chooks will scratch through the ground and they'll pick out any of that fruit fly that's overwintering in the ground before your fruit forms. So you can do all these little small things, but ultimately the only really 100% effective way to make sure you don't end up with fruit fly in your beautiful navel oranges is exclusion, whether it's bagging or netting. So at the moment, with your tree too big to net, I'd look at bagging individual fruit. So good luck with that, because it's nothing worse than growing beautiful fruit and finding it all full of fruit fly. Teresa and Ian, Dennis is also wondering what to do about fruit fly. Well, Teresa and Ian, I hope you just listened into what I told Jeannie. It's the same thing. So ideally for most home gardeners, if you can keep your trees to a size that you can net the trees, and you can set up a simple framework that allows you to slide the netting on and off really easily. So what most people find works most effectively is using in combination star pickets to set out a frame around the tree, and then add to that some high density polypipe. So that's not the little flimsy polypipe a lot of people use in their irrigation systems. It's something you'll see in large acreage irrigation systems. The size we use would be a 40 mil pipe, and that will actually curve over and form like a hoop over the top of your tree, but it's rigid enough that you can slide the netting over really easily and it will hold in place. There's some great examples of it on the internet if you Google fruit fly netting, where people have set up some really good frames. And once you get a good frame in place, it's not overly onerous then to take the netting off after fruiting and put it back on as fruit forms every year. So good luck. Hope that works well for you. June in New South Wales says Indian hawthorn hedge has developed some rusty orange looking leaves. So that could be in New South Wales, you have a problem with myrtle rust. So you may have some myrtle rust on there. You could also have some lacefly. Lacefly will get into the Indian hawthorns. What I recommend there with that plant, June, give it a good hard prune as soon as it finishes flowering, feed it up, and then just see if the new healthy growth stays clean. Make sure the soil's in good condition, so the water's soaking in really well, and then you'll be able to keep that plant really healthy. Indian hawthorns are pretty tough. Like, it takes a lot to knock them about. Give them a hard prune after flowering, get rid of all the infected foliage, feed them up, bit of wetting agent. I think it'll be fine. Fiona Hadley has had something munching on her saltbush berries. She's not sure what it is. Having a look at the picture there, Fiona, they're quite small plants, so could easily be something like caterpillars. It could be snails and slugs. It could also be, depending on whereabouts you are, you could have an issue with rabbits or bandicoots that I get at my house. They eat little small plants like that. So maybe come out at night with a torch, have a look and see if you can see anything around that's around those salt bushes. And whether it's snails or slugs or caterpillars, you just have to take action to prevent them from getting there. Normally, just a little bit of a few snail pellets, iron-based snail pellets around the plants will keep the snails and slugs away, a bit of dipel to keep the caterpillars away. The plants still look very healthy, although they've been munched down. They will reshoot very, very rapidly. Once you find out what who the culprit is and prevent them from doing any more damage, that plant will recover quite quickly. And Fiona also has a leptospermum that is not doing very well. That is not doing very well at all, Fiona. It looks like it may have either got a little bit pot bound or a little bit too wet over winter. Leptospermums, the tea trees, actually, most of them don't mind a little bit of extra moisture over the winter months, but that may have just got a little bit too much water. You're saying you've repotted it and disturbed the roots. That shouldn't be an issue. That they're pretty tolerant of that. What I would do is give it some seaweed solution, some sea salt, put it out somewhere nice and bright and sunny, get some sunshine onto it, and hopefully that will recover. As soon as we get into consistent warm weather, plants like the leptospermums will start putting out some fresh growth. Doesn't look all lost just yet. So fingers crossed, a little bit of seaweed solution. You can even give it a light fertilizer with a bit of native fertilizer. And I think you'll see that will recover quite quickly and hopefully put some fresh growth. And you can look forward to some beautiful flowers next spring. Now, Jody Wilson in New Mexico, New South Wales. I did not know there was a New Mexico and New South Wales. Has a row of bottle brushes and has one in the whole row that doesn't look very good. It's very yellow, looks like it's got a very bad case of chlorosis, so it's very lacking in iron. What I would do if I was you, Jody, get a pH tester, test the soil around that plant. I suspect it might be too high. So you may need to look at mending your soil, add some compost into that soil, and then some liquid trace elements. Get a container of liquid trace elements, mix it up in a backpack and spray it all over the foliage and get some nutrients and some minerals back into that foliage, and it should green up quite quickly. This time of the year, you can also give it a light prune and a light feed with some native fertilizer to encourage fresh growth. But first and foremost, get the pH tester out, check the pH of that soil, and if it is high, we need to do some amendment to get that pH down a little bit. So next up is our plant of the day. So sitting next to me right here quietly is this beautiful tall shrub. It's called a butterfly bush, and it's called a butterfly bush because it attracts butterflies into your garden. So this is a Buddleia Davidia. This particular one is called Pink Delight. Not surprisingly, it has beautiful pink flowers, big panicles of pink flowers. So the individual flowers are very small, but they come in big bunches and absolutely cover the entire plant when they're in flower. So if you get one now and they're available in the garden centres now and looking absolutely fantastic, plant it now, you'll get spring flowers, but you'll also get some autumn flowers as well. And when the flowers are out, your garden will be overrun with monarch butterflies, those beautiful dark orange and black spotted butterflies that just an absolute joy to see in the garden. And they will just smother the tree. They love the flowers, love the nectar within the flowers. The butterfly bush, the Buddleias, will also attract other insects, a lot of beneficial insects into your garden, and birds. So you'll have beautiful birds flittering around it as well. When it's in full flower, it's an absolute showpiece plant. Very easy to grow, grows in all parts of Australia, takes sun, takes a bit of shade, not too fussy about soils. If you're in clay soils, you might need to just loosen the soil up a bit and improve the drainage. In sandy soil, some organic materials, all they really need to get them growing really well. Give them a hard cut back every winter and you'll be rewarded with this beautiful grey-green foliage through spring, and then the spring flowers, and then you give it a light prune once those flowers are finished, and you'll get a second flush of flowers in autumns. So the Buddleia butterfly bush is my plant of the day. So a lot of great questions so far this morning. So remember to keep getting your questions in. Next up, we're going to talk to Rowan from Garden Express, find out what Rowan's up to and what beautiful plants he's got for us at the moment. Good morning, Rowan. How are you today?
I'm well, Darren. How are you?
I'm very good. What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk Gladdies today, mate. It's a super busy time for us here at Garden Express. As people's spring bulbs are coming up, daffodils and jonquils and the likes, it's time to start thinking about planting your summer flowering bulbs.
Summer flowering Gladdies are
things like Gladdies, liliums, dahlias, hippies, those types of things. But today it's all about Gladdies.
Gladdies, do you do a Dane Edna impersonation?
No, but I heard you do.
No, mine's terrible. I'm very consistent with my impersonations. They're all absolutely appalling.
Yeah, so this is about the best I can do.
So we'll have a look at a quick clip so we can get a bit of an idea of what your gladiola collection is all about, and then we'll come back and have a bit of a chat.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Gall, or gladdies as we affectionately know them. They're a marvellous summer flowering bulb that makes a really dramatic statement in the garden. A, because of their size, and B, because of the fabulous colours. Hailing from Africa and the Mediterranean, these are suitable to grow in all climate zones from cool right through to tropical. And spring is the perfect time to plant the corms. Don't just limit yourself to one lot, plant every 4 to 6 weeks for a great show right through summer. Of course, gladdies make brilliant cut flowers, and if you pick when the first flower is unfurling, you'll witness the whole show indoors. It's estimated there are over 10,000 hybrids and cultivars of gladioli in the world. So our friends at Garden Express have curated a very special selection. So there's 11 different colours and there's 5 bulbs of each. So that's 55 bulbs for $55, and that represents a saving of over 40% off regular prices. Don't hesitate to go online right now for a colour-filled summer show.
Very impressive. I love gladiolis myself. My dad used to grow a lot of them. So what are we looking at in this $55 bargain container of gladiolis?
Yeah, so there's 11 different colours in there, and you're going to get 5 bulbs or corms of each of those colours. So 55 bulbs altogether for just $55. And that's regularly $97.70 or thereabouts. So yeah, you're getting a really good deal. Colours like yellows, pinks, whites, deep reds, and a few bicolours chucked in there as well. It's a really nice collection.
Oh, beautiful. They make good vase flowers, don't they, the gladdies? They
really do, because they're so long. The flower spikes are really tall. I mean, these things can grow up to sort of 1.5 metres high, thereabouts. Hard to believe that it comes out of a little bulb or a little corm like that. Yeah, they do have a really nice vase life. And as Nev said, you can pick it a little bit early and watch it unfold or unfurl in the vase. It's absolutely stunning.
And easy to grow. Do the listeners need to keep anything in mind when they're preparing their soil?
These are really easy to grow. Prepare your soil just by digging in some blood and bone or some cow manure or a complete fertilizer, so something like that. And then you don't need to fertilize them again until they start to flower or just before they flower, and you can just top dress them with a fertilizer then. But with a gladdie, a lot of people do tend to dig them up, but you don't actually have to. Gladdies will generally like to be, left undisturbed for many years. But if you do happen to dig them up, and you do that just if you're worried about rotting or something like that over the winter period, keep them in a cool, dark, airy position. As far as pests go, you're looking at maybe aphids or thrip, but not too much of a problem. So you can dust those with an insecticide, or even consider planting something like lavender with them. Lavender attracts ladybirds. Ladybirds love aphids, so that's another way you could go about it.
Perfect, Ron. Well, I reckon that's an absolute bargain. $55 for 55.
It really is.
Gladdies. And thanks for your little bit of insight in there, how to get the best results from them. I'm sure you talk to Trevor next week, so I won't be here.
Okay, you get the week off. That's nice. Just jump online, guys. The web address is up there on the screen. It's Garden Express. There's a big banner on the homepage, and you can go straight to the offer from there.
Perfect. Thanks again, Ron. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Talk to you soon.
So thank you to all of you who sent in photos this morning. It certainly makes it a lot easier to diagnose the problem, or very least give you some ideas about how to plant out your garden when the photos come. So get the photos in as early as possible, so that gives Holly, our producer extraordinaire, the chance to get them up so I can get to have a good look at them. So on that note, let's get back into the question. So got Karen from Cloverdale in WA sent through some photos, and has got some insect pests on their frangipani, and a nice clear photo really helps. So what you have on there, Karen, is a bit of scale insect. You do see them on frangipanis quite often from time to time. So you can spray that frangipani with a bit of white oil. That will clean that up very effectively. But the other thing too is with the frangipanis, they do shed all their leaves in winter, or 99% of them. So if you are having any of those insect pests or even rust, which can be a bit prevalent on the frangipanis, make sure you clean those leaves up and put them into your home garbage bin and not into your compost, or don't just leave them in the garden. So that cleans those pests up as well. But a bit of white oil will clean that pest up for you, Karen, and keep your frangipani well fed during the warm months, and it will grow plenty of fresh foliage. Now, next up, Karen Gooch wants to know what plant this is, and she's got a plant that seems to be sticking out of a mix of ferneries and bamboos and such forth there. Now, that looks very much to me like a peppercorn tree, a Shyness, so the Brazilian peppercorn. Karen doesn't say exactly where she is. Sorry, Kerry doesn't say where she is, but in many parts of Australia, the Brazilian peppercorn is a really bad weed tree. It propagates by suckers and by seeds. It produces masses of seeds. The birds eat the seeds and they deposit them in your garden, and next thing you know, you've got a little grove of Brazilian peppercorn trees. I trace that back to where it's popping up out of the ground, Kerry, and dig it out. While it's still small, get as much of it out as possible. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a massive tree in your backyard that you won't particularly want. Now, Marcia Rivet has asked, when is the best time to prune citrus? Well, Marcia, I find with not just with citrus, but with all fruiting trees, probably the ideal time to prune them is straight after fruiting. So with your citrus, whether it's a mandarin tree or an orange, lemon, once you've finished the crop for the season, you've taken all the fruit off, cleaned up all the old fruit that's fallen on the ground, then you can give your tree a nice prune, shape it up. If you need to net the tree for birds or fruit fly, you need to keep that in mind. Give the tree room to regrow so it's not going to get too big. And then give it a light feed, compost around the ground, mulch, wetting agent, seaweed solution, all those things to get it off and running and ready for next season's crop. Remember, nice sharp secateurs too. Annika Jane is in Strathfield in South Australia, possibly 6 months away from completing the new house. So exciting time for you. Recently tested the soil and the pH is 9. Well, that's pretty high. And she wants to know if there's anything they can do to prep the soil before we move, or to just deal with that at planting time. Well, you can certainly start dealing with that at planting, but now before you move in and before planting time. So something that will bring the pH down slowly over a period of time and is sustainable is to add organic material to your soil. So compost, well-rotted animal manure, products out of your home compost bin, and all those sort of things, any organic material into the soil. Use a good coarse organic mulch over your garden, and that will over time slowly bring the pH down. You can do things like adding sulfur as well. That will tend to bring the pH down quickly, but it will go back up quite quickly as well. The other thing you do is you look at the pH of your soil, what your natural soil is, and just look at growing plants that grow very happily in that pH. So there'll be plenty of your native plants from that part of South Australia that will have evolved to grow in that type of soil and will be able to deal with that high pH. And the other option you do have is also to use raised garden beds. So you can build beds out of anything you like, whether it's timber, corrugated steel, anything like that. And then you can fill that up with enough good quality landscaping mix with a pH that sits about for the type of plants that you want to grow. So you have a couple of choices. You use your organic material, quick hit with some sulfur, or grow plants that you really that naturally thrive in that soil condition. Tom in Melbourne, Tom Seglem in Melbourne. Tony, I'm dyslexic this morning, grows aroids and wants to know the best bug killer to keep the pests under control. I like the granulated forms of bug killer that you can sprinkle around the base of the aroids. There's a few different ones on the market, and they will basically be taken up by the root system of the plants and control the pests that way. So you're not spraying and you're not taking out too many non-target insects. So if you look for a granulated systemic insecticide, there's a few on the market. They're readily available, and use them as directed, and they have the lowest possible impact of any of those systemic insecticides around. So that's the way I go with your aroids, Tony. Darren King is in Hawkesbury and wants to know the best way to tackle a wandering trad. So I'm assuming that's a Tradescantia, one that does tend to wander around the garden and cover it out. Darren, I actually find them really easy to manually remove. The problem with them as far as doing any sort of chemical herbicides on it is they get in all amongst all your other plants. So I just get in there and hand remove them. You need to keep on top of them because you'll go through to a really thorough job. You'll have missed 0.1% of the root system that's in the garden, and then they'll be up again soon. But if you keep on top of them with manual removing, that's what I find is the best and pretty much the only way to keep on top of those Tradescantias. There are some really nice ornamental varieties of Tradescantias, but the plain green leaf form does tend to get a bit rampant and will take over your garden if you turn your back on it for more than a minute. Tina Weber has a pink rosebud geranium and the leaves are going a rust colour and wants to know if that's normal. Well, Tina, it's not really normal. The rosebud geranium, which is a form of pelargonium, should have nice green leaves most of the year. So you might be actually getting some rust on that. You need to go to your local garden centre and get a fungicide that's suitable. So it'll be something copper-based or sulphur-based, and that will help get on top of that rust in your geraniums. There's plenty of them on the market, and just ask at your local garden centre, and that will take care of it pretty quickly. And with this warm weather coming, you give that plant a light prune, try and remove the worst of the infected foliage, give it a feed, and it will put out some beautiful fresh growth before you know it. Swapna has a jade plant that is facing on the east side of the home with early morning sun, and it's turning yellow. Located in the western side of Sydney. Any ideas from the solutions to get the colour back in the foliage? Well, Swapna, what I would look at firstly is the potting mix. Have a look at the pot if it's or the soil. See what sort of condition it's in. If it's really wet, that will definitely drain the colour out of that jade plant very quickly. And likewise, if it's really, really dry, that will cause it to go backwards. You tend to see the plant shriveling up and losing colour that way. So improving the soil. If it's in a pot, maybe repot it, get some fresh potting mix around it. Make sure that plant is getting a bit of sun. So it does need a little bit of direct light during the day. Morning sun's more than enough, and it will green up. They do green up very quickly, but just have a look at the soil and all the potting mix, get it in good condition, and that jade plant should recover before you know it. Now on to Sharon in Perth on the Swan Coastal Plain. I wants to know what the best wetting agent is for the native garden. One I use the most for my client Sharon is the Sea Salt Soil Wetter. It's a really good quality wetting agent, but it also comes with a hose-on applicator. And the hose-on applicator makes it very easy to use, and you also get the benefits of some of that seaweed solution going into the native garden as well. So that's the one I'd use. There's lots of really good wetting agents on the market. One thing I would say to you is I'd stick to the liquid forms rather than the granular forms. I find them to be best value for money, but the Sea Salt Soil Wetter is probably the one I would use. You'd have great results of that in all your gardens, but particularly your native gardens, they work very well. Margaret Campion in Belgrave has an established azalea bush growing out of a very, very old tree fern. I've never seen an azalea growing out of a tree fern. Now, it's got very large and wants to know the best way to keep this amazing showstopper plant in good health. I'd love to see a photo of it, Margaret. I'd love to see an azalea growing out of a tree fern. So I'm imagining it's either growing out of the top or somehow has managed to establish it's on the side of the trunk. Wants to know if she can prune the azalea. You certainly can. As soon as it's finished flowering, you can give it a prune. And you can be quite brutal with azaleas. They will take a very heavy prune. As long as the plant is in otherwise really good health, you can prune them as hard as you need to. You can cut into old wood and they'll reshoot through old wood very happily. And you'd also need to fertilize it at pruning time. So depending how this azalea is in your tree fern, you'll be able to, hopefully be able to apply a bit of granulated Osmocote around, or Troforte, either of those around that azalea, and that will feed it. And then you can liquid feed it as well during the growing months. So I'm absolutely fascinated about this azalea growing in the tree fern. So if you can, Margaret, send us a photo through. I'd love to see it. Marcia in South Brisbane wants to know how to deter rabbits. That has an absolute plague of them. Rabbit deterring is very difficult. So you either really need to fence your garden off to stop them from being able to get in. So all your agricultural stores will sell rabbit-proof fencing. I've used a little bit of it myself over the years, and that's the only ways to make a physical barrier. You can talk to your local council. All councils around Australia do have vermin control policies that they can put in place. So if you've got far too many rabbits and they're causing a lot of problem in your area, your local council should be able to step in and help you out with that. But in the meantime, you may need to go out and purchase a bit of rabbit-proof fencing and put that around your garden to keep the little varmints out. Another one from Margaret Campion has gardens are looking stunning at the moment, but has the possums going through the smorgasbord on their plants. Margaret, I feel you when it comes to possums, because we get possums in my part of the world like you wouldn't believe, and they do tend to pick out the plant that is your favourite in the garden and is days away from looking absolutely perfect. There are a few products on the market that will deter possums. There's one actually called Deter, and you can get that and mix it up in a watering can, pour it around areas of your garden, and it will help prevent the possums from being as keen to get in your garden. But after a while, with rainfall or with irrigation, the product gets washed away. And some people I know are a little bit dubious about using it around edible plants as well, whether the chemical that works to deter the possums also will get taken up by the fruit or the foliage of the plants. There's not much else you can do. Possums are a protected animal in most parts of Australia because they're native animals, so you really can't do much more else. Where I live in Perth, where we have a lot of possums, what a lot of people try and do is encourage them to other parts of the garden. So putting up possum boxes and putting some apple and stuff in there to get them happy going into the possum boxes and maybe staying in that area rather than venturing out to the rest of your garden. But unless you can get success with a product like Deter, I can't really recommend anything else, because if I knew other ways, I'd be doing it in my own garden. But physical barriers and maybe try the Deter, see how you go. Nicole Enders has bought a large amount of bulbs from Garden Express: daffodils, jonquils, gladdies, lilies, ranunculus, tulips. They're all doing amazing. That's great to hear. The daffodils and jonquils are being absolutely stunning, but are starting to die back. And the others are almost ready to bloom. So much colour, won't be shopping at a generic shop again. Well, that's great to hear, Nicole. And I'm fantastic to hear getting such great results. I know the Garden Express products are very, very good from my own experience. So well done, you. Craig Dobson wants to know, what's the best soil for citrus? Well, Craig, citrus are big feeders. They like a lot of goodness in the soil. So a good amount of organic material, compost, rotted animal manure is the go-to for most people. If you're in an area like Perth that has really sandy soils, you might also want to add a bit of clay just to bulk up the moisture and nutrient holding capacity of the sandy soils and keep them well mulched. So citrus have a shallow network of surface roots that go hunting for moisture, hunting for nutrients. So a good layer of mulch over the top of those will protect those surface roots and keep your citrus very, very healthy. Just remember to keep that mulch well back from the trunk of the citrus, because you do see from time to time people building the mulch up around the trunk. Encourages slaters, encourages collar rot, all the things you don't want around your citrus. So just keep that mulch a little bit away from the trunk and you'll be fine. But just good healthy soil, add fresh compost to it every year and keep the mulch topped up during the warm months and you should be fine. Citrus do very well in all parts of Australia. Leah Robinson is in Brisbane and sweet peas are starting to get powdery mildew. Wants to know the best way to deal with it. Leah, I imagine powdery mildew is a problem in Brisbane with your humidity, but just a fungicide. You can go to your local garden centre, you'll be able to pick up a fungicide that will work on that powdery mildew very effectively. Keep your plants well fed. Products like sea salt, seaweed extract also helps them be more resilient to the powdery mildew as well. So Darren King has had issues with fungus gnats in their indoor plants. Tried spraying and reducing the water without much luck. Well, Darren, I would just look at something like the diatomaceous earth around the top of the pots. And there are a couple of specific fungus gnat sprays that are carried in the local garden centres that you can try. The other thing is getting the plants outside it now that the weather's a bit nicer, changing the potting mix over, letting them dry out a little bit and just refreshing them in the outdoors for a little while before you bring them back indoors, and hopefully that will eradicate the dreaded fungus gnats. So unfortunately, we have run out of time and that has absolutely flown. So this week's lucky winner of the $50 gift voucher from Garden Express, and get yourself pretty close to 55 bulbs for that. That's a great price. Is Nicole Enders, who asked about the Mr. Lincoln Rose Hopefully you can use this purchase, the voucher too, maybe to buy some new plants. Nicole, congratulations. To claim your prize, just message us on Facebook. Continue to send your questions and photos in. We'll be back next week. Not me, it'll probably be Trevor. And so thank you very much for all your time today. I really appreciated it.
Can you just wrap this show? Garden Gurus is... Can you just wrap that show?
Don't forget, the Garden Gurus is on at 4:30 on 9 Live in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and 9 in Adelaide, Perth. Episode 1 of the Garden Gurus. Make sure you have a look at that. We'll be back next week with another live show. Tune in here on Facebook or on YouTube. Remember, you can always jump onto our website and catch up on our previous stories on the Garden Gurus and at gardengurus.tv. or on our YouTube channel, The Garden Gurus. And of course, tune in tomorrow for another episode of The Garden Gurus. Thank you.